Hello and welcome to Wine with Andy. I'm Andy. Have you ever found yourself standing in a supermarket wine aisle, staring blankly at a wall of bottles, bewildered by the choice? Or sitting in a restaurant, looking through the wine list, wondering which one you might actually like, or which one might go with your dinner, or whether you can get away with ordering the house wine? Well, you've come to the right place. Over the course of these videos, I'm going to help you learn how to taste wine. I'll help you understand why you like what you like and why you don't like what you don't like, and perhaps help you find a few new favourite wines along the way. So the idea here is that you taste along with me. Most weeks we'll be trying two wines next to each other. And the reason for having two side by side is because that makes it easier to compare them and spot the differences in flavours. I'll let you know at the end of each episode the wines to look out for and get for next time. You should be able to find something suitable in the supermarket along with your weekly shop. And I'd suggest looking for wines around the £7 to £10 mark, but you can trade up if you want to. The reason I say £7 to £10 is because of where the money that you pay for wine actually goes. Some of the costs are pretty much the same no matter how much you're paying, things like packaging and transport and import duty. So when you buy a cheap bottle of wine, very little of the money you pay actually goes to the wine itself. By spending just a few pounds more, you give the winemaker a lot more money to play with, and that means you get better wine. But we're not here to talk about economics, so let's get started with tasting. The first thing you're going to need is a wine glass. And I'd suggest you look out for a wine glass that's a nice tulip shape, like this one, with a wide bowl at the bottom and a narrower opening at the top. That shape helps funnel the aromas of the wine towards your nose when you smell it. And it also helps keep the wine in the glass when you swirl it around. It also, I find, helps funnel the wine towards your mouth when you've had a few glasses. You can find some really good wine glasses for not very much money. This one was about £1 from IKEA, which is pretty good given how often I manage to break them. So, tasting. Today, we're just doing one wine. That's because we're focusing on the process of tasting wine, rather than the wine itself. So, grab a bottle of whatever you've got to hand and pour yourself a glass. I've got this Italian Pinot Grigio. Pour a glass so that it fills up to the widest part of the glass. That gives the biggest surface area for the flavours to evaporate from inside the glass. The first part of wine tasting is actually probably not what you'd think of as tasting at all. It's looking at the wine. So pick up the glass and tilt it against a light or white background and have a look at the colour. You might be able to see a difference in colour between the middle and the edge. It might be translucent or opaque, and you might be able to put a name to the colour. So this is a very, very pale colour, but I'd say it's a sort of strawy yellow. The next step is to sniff it. So pick up the glass, get your nose in there, and inhale. There are some flavours. Now it's really difficult to start putting names to flavours. So just start off thinking in terms of broad categories. And what we're looking for here is fruit flavours. That's the most obvious thing that should be in your wine. So is it citrus fruit? Is it green fruit? Is it tropical fruit? Is it red berries? Is it dark fruit? Think about those broad categories, and then you can maybe start to narrow things down. It might help you to write things down as you think of them. Anything that comes to mind is fine. So to me, this smells quite green. Green and crisp like an apple. The next step is to give the glass a swirl, like this. It's a lot easier to do it on the table. The reason for this is that the wine coats the inside of the glass, and that gives an even bigger surface area for the flavours to evaporate from. Your nose works by detecting aroma molecules in the air. but it needs a certain minimum amount of those aroma molecules before it can actually detect them. By coating the inside of the glass with wine and evaporating more aroma molecules, we widen the amount of things that our nose can possibly smell in that wine. So if you swirl it and now sniff again, you'll probably find that the wine has changed. It might smell like more of the same. You might get a more intense aroma, or you might be able to spot some new things. So I can now smell honey alongside the apple, and maybe something a bit nutty as well. The next step of wine tasting is to actually put it in your mouth. So take a sip, swirl it around your mouth, and suck some air through as well. Make some funny noises and some funny faces. Like that. What we're doing here is getting the wine in around the mouth, filling in all of the places you can possibly taste it, and sucking the air through continues to evaporate those aroma molecules. Most of taste is actually smell. You're just smelling what's inside your mouth because your nose and mouth link up inside your head. So if we get more aroma molecules evaporated, we can taste more. Alongside the flavours that we were thinking about before, so the fruity things, there'll be some other things that we can detect with the wine in our mouth. First off, there's sugar, which you might taste on the tongue as the wine comes into the mouth. It's really difficult to think about sugar in wine because there are sweet flavours and there's sugar, and you can't actually taste or smell sugar in terms of the flavour, but you can feel it on your tongue and feel that sweetness. So we'll think about that more in a later episode, but just be careful about sugars. The next thing you might be able to detect is acid, and you'll feel that as a prickling or a tingling sensation on your tongue as you hold the wine in your mouth, perhaps even a burning sensation if the wine is really acidic. The final thing you'll be able to detect with the wine in your mouth is the alcohol level. You'll feel that on the back of your throat as you swallow the wine. And you might feel a bit of a burn if it's a really high alcohol wine, or it might be really sort of smooth and watery. You'll also get a sort of overall impression of the wine. So you might feel the texture of the wine. It might feel oily or really watery. That seems like a funny thing to say, but these differences do exist. And we'll explore them more later on in different episodes. The final part of wine tasting is what happens after you swallow it. So the fruity flavours do stay on for a little bit longer after I've swallowed this Pinot Grigio. You might find that your wine has a long length that those flavours stay on for, or a very short length, and the length of the finish is something that is dependent on the intensity of the flavours in the wine. If it's a long finish, that means the flavours are really intense, and that's a sign that the wine is a good quality wine. So that's wine tasting. Look, sniff, swirl, sniff, taste, finish. And then there's a really important final step. Think about it. Did you like the wine? What did you think of the flavours? Did you enjoy it? What about those flavours meant that you enjoyed it? We'll carry on thinking about the flavours and the things that we taste throughout this series. So for next time, we're going to get stuck into actual comparative wine tasting. And we're going to be starting out by comparing different climates. Climate is the most important thing that affects the flavour of a wine. So we're going to compare a wine from a hotter place with a wine from a cooler place. To do that, I'd like you to go out and find 2 unoaked Chardonnays. Unoaked means that no oak has been used in the making of the wine. Oak's sometimes used to impart extra flavour into a wine. And you might need to do a bit of detective work on the back labels of the wine bottles that you're buying to find out whether oak has been used. If it's not mentioned, it's not been used. So the first wine I'd like you to find is an unoaked Chardonnay from the Burgundy region in France. Now this might seem a bit tricky at first because French wines often like to hide the grape varieties they're made from. They don't often put them on the front label. They might say on the back label, if there is one. But the laws in France around winemaking specify what grapes you can use where. So most white wines from Burgundy, almost all of them, are made from Chardonnay. And I'd suggest you look out for wines that say Mâcon, like this bottle here, or Chablis on the front label. Those wines will be made from Chardonnay and at the £7 to £10 price mark will probably, almost certainly, not have been oaked. The other wine that I'd like you to find should be an unoaked Chardonnay from South Africa or Australia. This will say Chardonnay on the front of it, because that's how those countries operate, but you might need to check the back label again just to make sure that it hasn't seen any oak. These are the two bottles that I've got. They came from my local co-op. You should be able to find something suitable in your local supermarket as well. So, this time we've been through how to taste wine, and I've introduced the wines that you'll need to find for next time. I hope you found it interesting, and if you have and you want to keep up with me, please click on the subscribe link down below, and I'll see you next time. Cheers!